Billionaire reveals his 4 black credit cards. The MAID's amazing purchase transformed everything. Jake Matthews sat at the breakfast table in his sprawling Silicon Valley estate, sunlight streaming in through the floor-to-ceiling windows. His phone buzzed with notifications, but his mind wandered restlessly. As he scanned through the quarterly reports, a familiar sense of emptiness clawed away at him. Every dollar earned felt like another weight added to the armor he wore, a suit of success that seemed to repel genuine connection. His thoughts were distracted by the image of his 4 exclusive black credit cards, each signifying not just wealth but a life lived in isolation. They gleamed like trophies, reminders of a childhood spent in struggle, shaped by a determined single mother who had taught him to chase success relentlessly. Yet, here he was, surrounded by luxury, yet estranged from those who mattered most, his family's voices fading into the background of his ambition. On that Tuesday morning, everything changed when he stumbled upon Maria's vibrant vintage caravan parked in the garden, a vivid contrast to the monochrome expanse of his life. Iridescent colors painted a picture he could barely comprehend. What compelled her to invest her hard-earned savings into this whimsical dream? As he approached, curiosity pricked at him, a foreign sensation in his well-guarded world. "Maria," he said, plucking courage from the depths of his discomfort. "Did you really buy this?" Her face lit up, that warmth hitting him like a soft wave. "Yes, Mr. Matthews. It's my dream." So began a conversation that would grip his heart. She spoke with a sincerity that felt foreign yet intoxicating, sharing tales of laughter, community, and a life filled with the joys he had long lost, evenings around the campfire, shared meals under the stars. With every story, Jake felt something familiar but buried rise within him, a nostalgia tinged with fear. It became painfully clear that while he amassed wealth, he isolated himself from relationships that fueled the soul. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but as Jake stood there, feeling that flicker of something approaching, hope, a phone call shattered the fragile peace. The voice on the other end was cold and familiar, dredging up a buried legacy tied to the secrets of his past. A figure from his childhood, one connected to shadows he avoided through sheer determination, emerged demanding attention. A past threatening to unravel his meticulously crafted identity. Maria's caravan transformed in his mind into a beacon, a stark contrast to the life he navigated with calculated precision yet devoid of warmth. Torn between the allure of his empire and the fragmented remnants of family he had disregarded, Jake's muscles tensed. Every moment stretched, the vulnerability pulling at him. What would he sacrifice to reclaim that lost connection? The shadows of a legacy long hidden loomed larger as he faced an urgent decision. Just then, the doorbell rang, echoing through the silent house, cutting through the tension. Who could it be? A knot tightened in his stomach, the mystery propelling him further down a path he never wanted to take. His heart raced, the conflict merging within him, as the past collided with his present, leaving him at a painful crossroads. The door swung open, and everything he thought he knew was about to change. Jake opened the door, bracing himself for what awaited him. Standing there was an unexpected figure from his past, a face that sent shivers down his spine, the man he had tried desperately to forget, yet who loomed larger than he cared to admit. "Ethan," he breathed, as the weight of nostalgia mixed with dread pressed hard against his chest. Ethan's presence flickered with a power Jake had long left behind. The air crackled with unsaid words, memories, and unfinished business. "We've got a lot to talk about," Ethan said, his voice smooth yet laden with unyielding certainty. Time seemed to freeze as Jake's mind raced through fragmented recollections, all those years spent running from the burdens tied to Ethan and his own family legacy. Beneath the polished facade of success, doubt resurfaced, forcing him to confront decisions he had buried under ambition. "Why are you here?" Jake managed to say, his grip tightening on the doorframe, feeling both vulnerable and exposed. Part of him wanted to slam the door shut and seal shut the past, but an undeniable curiosity held him captive. Ethan's call had drawn him to the interwoven past he kept hidden, and now here it was, standing right before him. Ethan stepped inside with an air of authority that riled Jake further. The warmth of the sunny California day seemed to evaporate as the shadow of their shared history loomed above them. "I know about what you're doing out here. The empire you've built and the solitude that comes with it," he said, glancing around at the opulence of the estate. There was a hint of mockery in his voice that unsettled Jake deeply. "Is that why you've come?" Jake replied, keeping his tone steady. "To gloat?" He could feel the edge of frustration creeping into his voice, but he fought to maintain his composure. In that moment, he realized that confrontation was inevitable. Whatever fear he felt, Ethan was the embodiment of the shadows he'd long kept at bay. "No, Jake. I'm here to help you see the truth," Ethan replied, leaning slightly closer, his gaze locking onto Jake's. The intensity in his eyes sent waves of discomfort through Jake, forcing him to relive his childhood memories of late-night conversations where Ethan's influence had both captivated and chained him. "You think I need your help?" Jake shot back, testing his resolve. Ambition had been his driving force, but now he felt something shift inside, a rising urge to reclaim a part of himself he'd neglected too long. "The truth is, someone has to show you. You've built a castle, but you're caged inside it," Ethan said, his words echoing like a chime in Jake's mind. The imagery pierced through his carefully constructed life, highlighting the stark isolation of wealth. As Jake took a step back, he found himself grappling with a haunting realization: success had come at a cost, and for the first time, its weight felt unbearable. "What do you want from me?" His voice softened, revealing cracks in his armor. With a bemused smile, Ethan replied, "To help you face what you've always run from. The past will keep haunting you until you confront it." Jake's heart raced, grappling with the suffocating complexity of his emotions. The door loomed behind him like an exit he could nearly escape through, but the thought of closing off this chapter again felt like failing yet again. In that moment, he felt a fierce yearning to break free from the confines of his pristine life. Yet, the toll of discovery weighed heavy. What truths would emerge if he let Ethan in? Was he prepared to confront the demons that lingered in the corners of his mind and heart? Jake hesitated, teetering on the brink of revelation, as the distance between them echoed louder than anything he'd ever faced. This was more than just a confrontation, it was a moment poised on the edge of transformation. As he stood there, caught in the gravity of the past and the urgent need for change, Jake felt a spark of defiance. The time had come to reclaim his story and break free from the chains of legacy. But as the door slowly creaked open, a sudden realization washed over him: the past was more interconnected with the present than he had ever imagined. What awaited them on the other side would redefine who he was and who he could become. Would he embrace the chaos of recollection, or would he retreat back into the monochrome world he had created? The answer loomed larger than himself as he stepped deeper, knowing that the real journey was just beginning. Jake felt the air shift as Ethan's presence settled like a dense fog in the room. An unyielding tension anchored him to the spot, forcing him to confront the undeniable. This was more than just a conversation, it was an awakening. Memories surged through him like a tidal wave, shaking the resolve he'd carefully cultivated over the years. "What are you trying to prove?" he asked, attempting to mask the quiver in his voice with an edge of defiance. Beneath the surface, however, a storm brewed as he faced Ethan, who had always pulled him toward the darker corners of his own psyche. Ethan's eyes narrowed, not with malice, but with a perceptible understanding. "This isn't about proving anything, Jake. It's about rediscovering who you are before all of this." He gestured to the expansive living room filled with gleaming possessions. "Is this truly you? Or just a version molded from fear and expectation?" Jake felt the words stir something within him, a flicker of discontent. The empire he had painstakingly built stood before him, and yet it felt cold and unwelcoming. Solitude wrapped around him like a blanket, and the laughter that once echoed in these halls had faded into silence. He began questioning the emptiness of his surroundings. Was this wealth a sanctuary, or merely a gilded cage? You don't know me, Jake countered, attempting to salvage his pride while grappling with the gnawing realization that Ethan might be right. The dissonance between his exterior success and internal void was becoming harder to ignore. Maybe I know you better than you realize, Ethan replied, voice dropping to a whisper that revealed a shared history of both dreams and betrayals. Remember the nights when we talk about our ambitions? You dreamed of changing the world, not locking yourself away. A rush of youthful idealism flashed through Jake's mind, moments when his heart had been ablaze with purpose. But then darkness crept in, societal expectations and familial obligations reshaping those dreams into structured ambitions, and he had willingly acquiesced. You think you can just waltz in here and make me question everything? He snapped, anger bubbling to the surface. Yet, beneath the confrontation was a thread of curiosity, a hunger for authenticity that he had long suppressed in favor of success. Ethan remained unfazed, a steady anchor in the tumultuous sea of Jake's emotions. I don't want to make you question your life, Jake. I want you to reclaim the question itself. Who are you without the labels, the wealth, the fear? If we strip away every layer, what remains? Jake's throat tightened at the thought. Was it truly necessary to peel back everything he'd built? The very idea sent tendrils of dread slithering through him. In his pursuit of success, what had he forfeited? What was left of his true self? As silence enveloped them, discomfort gave rise to a profound yearning. He found himself contemplating his choices, the sacrifices made for the sake of ambition. The walls that surrounded him felt both like barriers and reflections of his own self-imposed limitations. Let us explore that together, Ethan said, sensing the shift. I'm here to help you face what you've avoided for too long. It might be messy, but that's part of the process. With each passing second, Jake felt the grip of the past began to weaken, and a flicker of resolve sparked within him. Maybe this was the opportunity he needed to reclaim the narrative of his life. Perhaps he didn't have to be defined solely by his impressive portfolio or the echoes of his family's legacy. As he took a breath, trying to quell the burgeoning rumble of uncertainty, Jake realized the urgency within him. This wasn't just a confrontation with Ethan, it was a showdown with himself, his ghosts, his choices, and ultimately, a step toward rediscovery. Ethan leaned in slightly closer, his voice low and inviting. Are you willing to shed the layers and face the truth together? Jake swallowed hard, the weight of the moment settling heavily on his shoulders. The real journey lay ahead, and as he stood on the precipice of transformation, he felt the stirrings of courage ignite within him. But deep down, lingering questions loomed. Could he truly handle what awaited him? Would he find freedom in vulnerability, or be consumed by what he might uncover? Every heartbeat resonated with anticipation as he opened his mouth, ready to declare his choice and set in motion a pivotal transformation. Jake's heart raced as he struggled to articulate his response. Every word felt like a monumental crossing, a potential fracture between the life he had so meticulously constructed and the unknown path that loomed with the promise of authenticity. The quiet tension in the room coated his thoughts in a layer of both fear and exhilaration. Ethan, unwavering and patient, maintained eye contact, as if he were reaching into the depths of Jake's soul. The challenge hung in the air, electric and charged. What will it be, Jake? Will you choose comfort or the unknown? Each option pressed against him with its own distinct weight. Jake took a deep breath, the air taut with unsaid words. I need to think about this. The admission felt weak, like a damning acknowledgement of his hesitation. Thinking is fine, Ethan reassured, his voice steady, but be aware that overthinking often leads to paralysis. His words rang true, invoking memories of moments where Jake had second-guessed decisions, allowing opportunities to slip through his fingers. Those echoes were haunting. A part of him wanted to explode in defiance against Ethan's probing. But another part felt alive, ignited by the potential to reshape his future. What if I'm just afraid? Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper, revealing the fragility beneath his confident exterior. Fear is a natural response, Ethan said simply, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. But it doesn't have to dictate your choices. What you need to do is confront it. The question is, how do you plan to face this fear? Will you encounter it head-on, or continue to let it define you? Jake grappled with his internal turmoil, recalling the decisions that had led him to this moment. Every late night and every missed family gathering now appeared to be symbols of his misplaced priorities. If the ambition that fueled his ascent also constructed his prison, how could he step outside of it? Every hour spent in business meetings, negotiating contracts, acquiring assets, all those sacrifices appeared hollow in the light of Ethan's challenge. How did I become this person, he pondered, anger and regret intertwining in a dissolution that made him giddy. The ease with which he once navigated his life morphed into a crippling uncertainty, demanding deeper introspection. No more running heads down into another deal, Jake resolved, as though voicing this realization externally could vault it into existence. I will forge a path of my own making. Ethan smiled gently, the transformative potential of their exchange shimmering in the space between them. That's a courageous first step, Jake. But understanding your motivations is only half the journey. You must also confront the actions that arise from them. Are you ready to embrace that? Jake felt a pulse of determination surge through him, cradling the rising tide of curiosity and fear. Yes. But, there are consequences, right? I could lose everything. The tremor in his voice betrayed the inner wrestling match unfolding. Everything worth having requires sacrifice, Ethan answered, his gaze unrelenting. But are you willing to sacrifice the facade for honesty? To turn the mirror to yourself rather than the world? That's the crux. The invitation to engage in this deeper examination of his life echoed in Jake's mind, reverberating against the walls of his successes. He weighed the potential for loss against the necessary evolution he craved. The remaining shadows of self-doubt threatened to overshadow any newfound vigor, pressing against him as reminders of what he might lose. As he sat back on the plush sofa, his surroundings seemed sharper, the muted colors filled with vibrant potential. Jake sensed a newfound clarity surfacing, transforming anxiety into an iridescent spark of hope. Let's tackle those fears together, Ethan suggested, his tone shifting from challenge to companionship. We'll take this one layer at a time. What's the first truth you're ready to confront? Jake inhaled deeply, the reality dawning on him. The journey had begun. He was not merely at a crossroads, he was standing at the threshold of an awakening that could redefine his life. But as he considered the weight of Ethan's question, a trickle of doubt seeped back in. Could he truly face his past? Would the legacy he feared to abandon reveal the man he could become? Let's start with something simple, Jake finally said, his voice stronger now, laced with newfound determination. I want to uncover how my relationships have shaped my choices. The journey into his own psyche felt like stepping off a ledge, but he wasn't alone. Ethan nodded, a flicker of pride in his expression. Perfect choice. The past holds keys to understanding your future, and it's time to unlock those doors. As Jake prepared to delve into his past, ready to peel away his painful layers, an unsettling thought crept back. What if the revelations would threaten not just his success, but also his identity entirely? The air was heavy with unresolved questions, as a profound anxiety swirled within him. Would Jake emerge liberated and reborn from this journey, or ensnared by the ghosts of his past? His next words could determine everything. Jake's mind raced as he turned over Ethan's invitation in his head, the implications of uncovering how my relationships have shaped my choices, deeply unnerving. Which relationships? The ones based solely on business transactions, or the residual connections from his past that were brewed in authenticity? Shoals of nostalgia swept through him, evoking memories both cherished and unsettling. It's about my father, isn't it? Jake's voice broke the silence, the admission laden with a weight he hadn't anticipated. The mention of his father ignited a familiar resentment intertwined with longing. As a child, he felt the sharp thrust of disapproval with every underwhelming report card, every creative venture deemed frivolous. Those moments crystallized into a singular truth: approval was tied to ambition. To succeed was to be loved. Ethan nodded slowly. He is certainly a starting point. How did his expectations shape your life choices? The question hung there, a tacit challenge further pressed against Jake's fragile defenses. A well of past resentment bubbled to the surface, reminding him of the unyielding path he'd walked in his father's shadow. I guess it pushed me to become the person I am today. Driven, successful, but empty inside. The confession stung, yet felt liberating, as if scales were falling from his eyes. Did success come at the cost of your identity? Ethan inquired, his gaze unwavering, peeling back the frail layers of Jake's self-image like an onion. The question ignited flashes of his life, graduation parties with hollow congratulations, client meetings where he had worn his scripted smile like armor, family gatherings turned obligatory. Every time I achieved something, it felt good until it didn't. It became about the next deal, the next number. An unsettling realization washed over him. Each accomplishment was met with fleeting joy, the celebration suppressed by impending expectations. Let the past fuel your growth, Ethan encouraged. Your father's ideals are a part of you, but they don't have to govern your identity. The rawness of the conversation made Jake reflective. A hesitation formed in his mind as he began to question whether his pursuit of success was truly aligned with who he was. I've always wanted to prove him wrong, to show that I could achieve something remarkable. But now I see a need for something more meaningful. Meaningful? Like what? Ethan pried gently, sensing the maelstrom within Jake was ready to unleash itself. Relationships. Genuine connections, Jake whispered, surprised by the depth of his self-discovery. He had spent years building a facade of connections that were transactional at best. What if he could reshape those ties, transform them into authentic relationships rather than mere profitable associations? This sounds promising, Ethan said, his grin widening. Ready to start redefining what meaningful connections mean for you? Jake nodded, preparing to dive headfirst into this uncharted territory of vulnerability. I think I need to reconnect with the friends I neglected. Maybe make amends with family members. People I distanced myself from in pursuit of this hollow triumph. That sounds like a powerful start, Ethan said, a tone of encouragement saturating his voice, but remember, true connections require reciprocity and honesty. Are you prepared to be transparent about your intentions? An unearthing uncertainty stirred within Jake. He envisioned moments of vulnerability that might open doors to wounds but also possibilities. The thought of facing the consequences of his past decisions filled the air with a sense of trepidation, yet a pulse of determination surged through him. Okay, I'm ready. Not just to mend, but to truly engage. He felt a stirring, an awakening ignited in this moment fraught with uncertainty, but as he committed to this new path, a gnawing fear struck him. What if this introspection peeled back layers he wasn't prepared to witness? What if some revelations might shatter even more than his carefully curated life? Jake met Ethan's gaze as a new fire ignited. What if I restart everything? Not just relationships, my values. The thought was both electrifying and terrifying. Then prepare yourself. Diving into your core beliefs may unveil the truths you've been ignoring, Ethan stated, a trace of seriousness mixing with encouragement. Are you ready to challenge everything you thought you knew? As Jake pondered the enormity of this impending expedition into the heart of his beliefs, he couldn't silence the voice of doubt whispering, are you ready to reshape your very existence? Would he emerge with a more profound understanding, or would he risk unraveling the threads that held his life together? The air grew heavy once more with the weight of his revelations, as Jake prepared to dismantle the convictions he had spent a lifetime cementing. Each nuanced thought poised against the uncertainty of what truths lay ahead. The journey was just beginning. Jake inhaled sharply, the air thick with the promise of change and the stench of his own trepidation. The prospect of redefining his values loomed large, a daunting mountain he felt he needed to climb. The conversation with Ethan resonated within him, each idea echoing like a bell tolling for his old life. How had he let ambition dull his sense of self? How far could he go in discovering who he truly was without the cloak of success? He stood up, signaling a break in the intense moment. I should probably reach out to someone. Put this into action. The words were firm, yet deep down, hesitation tugged at him. Who would he call? Who still mattered in his life beyond the facade of business associates? The glimmer of connection with old friends flickered like a distant candle. Resolute in his heart, he fished out his phone, scrolling through names that had become mere relics of a bygone era. One name splashed across the screen sent a rush of nostalgia through him. Leah. They had been close once, friends navigating the chaos of their 20s, sharing dreams and laughter until he sprinted down the rabbit hole of his career. "Hey Leah, it's Jake. I know it's been a while," he began, the hesitation thickening his voice. She picked up on the other end, her surprise evident. "I was hoping we could catch up, see how things are going." The conversation flowed awkwardly at first. Thankfulness mixed with the strain of recognizing how much distance had grown between them. But as they talked, Jake noticed a crack forming in the armor he had diligently built around himself. There was comfort in vulnerability, a sensation he hadn't anticipated. By the time they parted, Jake felt lighter, as if he had exorcised a demon that had haunted him for years. Perhaps reconnecting wasn't just about mending ties, it was about rediscovering pieces of himself he had neglected. As he hung up, a fire ignited within him, pushing him further. Thoughts of family and their lingering expectations filled his mind. The idea of reaching out to them, of facing not just his father but the legacy of pressure he had carried like a badge, pressed heavily on his chest. The gnawing thoughts of disappointment flickered through his mind. Was reconnecting with family worth the risk? They hadn't always seen his choices favorably. Yet, there was a warmth in the desire to rebuild something, a chance at redemption. With a surge of determination, he dialed his sister's number. "Hey, Jenna, it's me." The conversation began with palpable tension, a dance around years of misunderstanding and hurt. But as they talked, Jake felt the old wounds stitch slowly together. She was tentative, but the foundation of their childhood memories served as a bridge. He poured out his genuine desire to rebuild, and to his shock, she echoed a similar sentiment. "I think I could have done more to reach out too," she admitted softly. The realization washed over him. They both had been locked in a cycle of avoidance, scared to face each other's truths. Later that night, as he reflected on the connections he'd begun to rekindle, he realized something profound. Each encounter both with Leah and Jenna had not just challenged him to confront his past, but to redefine success in human terms. This new frame refracted light onto deeper values, authenticity, empathy, and familial love. As Jake sunk into bed, the exhaustion pulled him under, a sense of accomplishment wrapping around him like a warm blanket. He had taken steps, but uncertainty still snaked around him. What awaited him in yet another vulnerable call to his father? Did their relationship hold any hope of reconciliation, or would it lay bare the insecurities he had always avoided? He drifted into a restless sleep, haunted yet electrified by visions of family tables filled with laughter and conversation, fractured yet yearning to be whole again. And like the dawn creeping through the curtains, a new resolve began to take form. Was it possible to reshape the very roots of his identity? The next morning, Jake awoke with a fierce intention. He would confront his father, not as the defiant son desperate for approval, but as a man seeking to redefine their legacy together. He reached for the phone, finger hovering over the dial button, and hesitated. What would this pivotal conversation reveal? The weight of what lay ahead both terrified and invigorated him. Jake took a breath, focusing on this next daunting leap. "It's time to face the architect of my past." Jake's heart raced as he grappled with the impending conversation. He had navigated boardrooms and negotiations with seasoned executives, yet the thought of speaking to his father unearthed an anxiety that felt both foreign and familiar. The stakes were existential, representing not just a family dynamic, but also a chance to reclaim his sense of self. He took a moment to ground himself, shaking his hands to dispel the nervous energy. Each breath became a rhythm, a metronome setting the pace for what lay ahead. As he pressed the call button, a jolt of adrenaline surged through him. He was stepping into the unknown. After 3 rings, the familiar voice answered. "Jake." It was gruff yet tinged with a hint of hesitation. There had been years of silence, yet the warmth of their shared history lingered like an old coat he had outgrown. "Hi Dad." The words felt heavy, as if they were dragging along the weight of their shared past. A silence enveloped them, stretching uncomfortably. "I didn't expect to hear from you," his father replied, the tone a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. In that moment, Jake could feel the wall between them, the brick and mortar of misunderstandings and past grievances. "I know it's been a while," Jake began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about us, about the choices I've made." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "And I want to understand things better." His father grunted softly. "There's a lot from our past worth discussing." It wasn't an invitation, but it wasn't a rebuff either. The opening was there, he just had to dive in. Jake inhaled deeply, pushing past the instinct to retreat into his safety net of business jargon. "When I think about what it means to be successful, I realize I've lost sight of why I'm in this at all. We've both chased things that don't matter as much as we thought." The line fell silent again, stretching painfully. Jake could almost sense the gears turning in his father's mind. "What are you saying?" his father finally demanded, a rush of defensiveness bubbling up from years of unspoken criticism. "I want to reconnect, really connect," Jake replied, his voice rising with conviction. "Not just to prove something to you or myself, but because you matter to me. I think I need our relationship to move forward." In the long pause that followed, Jake's heart pounded. Was he going to receive an olive branch, or was this attempt going to trigger another tirade? "Jake," his father finally began, but the words were slow, almost hesitant. "You know I had my reasons, my dreams for you. It was about saving you from failure." Each word was laced with the fragility of their shared history, the expectation that had driven Jake to flee to the world of business. "I understand that," Jake stated, his assertiveness sharpening. "But I can't keep living for someone else's idea of success. I need to find what success looks like to me, even if that means taking risks that don't fit what you envisioned." The friction of their exchange ignited something inside Jake. This was confrontation, this was a test of character and truth. Would he bend under the weight of his father's disappointment, or would he stand firm in his need for authenticity? "You think you can just walk away from everything I built?" his father replied, the anger boiling beneath the surface. "I'm not walking away, I'm walking toward something new. I want to include you in my journey. Will you let me?" Jake's pulse raced as he awaited the answer that could reshape everything. He had stripped himself of the armor, bared his thoughts, and offered a chance for transformation. Every fraction of silence felt heavy, as if time itself had paused to witness the confrontation. "Let us meet," his father finally said, voice tentative yet somehow softer. The offer hung in the air, sparking visions of a conversation wrapped in the complexities of their shared past but eager for a future. Suddenly, the possibility of reconciliation ignited a blend of hope and anxiety in Jake's chest. As he hung up, he stared blankly at the wall, his mind a whirl of what-ifs and hopes. This wasn't merely a meeting, it was a chance to break chains that had long bound him. But as he sat in silence, uncertainty dripped through his newfound confidence. What would this meeting unveil? Was he ready to confront the roots of his father's expectations, the legacy that had shaped him but also constrained him? Jake's newfound determination battled against the ghosts of doubt. It was time, he would have to navigate the difficult waters of this long-ignored relationship. This meeting had the potential to shatter or rebuild entirely. With the clock ticking down to their face-to-face encounter, Jake felt the weight of the future looming over him like a storm cloud. Would he emerge transformed, or would old patterns overwhelm their fragile connection? It was an impending revelation. The moment of truth approached, and he was at a precipice of potential both exhilarating and terrifying. Jake felt the anticipation building within him as the hours ticked down. The meeting with his father loomed like a colossal wave, a force that could either crash over him or propel him forward. He pulled his thoughts together, recalling how he had approached negotiations in his career with a calculated strategy and unwavering focus. Yet here, in this deeply personal context, no strategy seemed foolproof. As the appointed hour drew near, he paced back and forth in his apartment, visualizing their conversation as a business deal. What were the objectives? What concessions might he need to make? The imagined contours of their exchanges morphed before his eyes somewhere between a debate and a cleansing confession. Jake had faced countless corporate adversaries, but never had he felt so determined to reach an agreement that mattered so profoundly that he took a moment to gather his thoughts and settled down at the dining table, a paper and pen by his side. Writing had always been a tool for clarification. He began listing points he wanted to discuss, their shared history, his feelings of estrangement, his own recent quest for authenticity. Just as importantly, he noted his goals for the conversation, which could be summarized succinctly: understanding and forging a new path forward. With each point, he felt a flutter of anxiety, but alongside it surged a deeper resolve. This wasn't just about what he wanted to say, it was about courage, reclaiming his right to define success on his own terms. Jake glanced at the clock again, realizing it was nearly time. Slipping on a casual blazer, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. The reflection showed a man who had faced adversity, not just in the boardroom but within the crucible of familial expectations. Today, he would stand firm, ready to bridge the gap. The cafe chosen for their meeting was familiar, a place he and his father often visited during simpler times. As he entered, he scanned for his dad, his heart pounding with a mix of hope and trepidation. Jake spotted him seated at a corner table, visibly older yet unyielding, a mirror of the principles that had shaped both their lives. "Dad," Jake greeted, forcing a smile as he slid into the chair opposite him. "Jake. You look different," his father replied, his voice neutral, eyes scrutinizing. The comment lacked warmth, yet it embedded the reality of the moment. The son before him was no longer the younger man who fled into the business world cloaked in ambition. "Thanks," Jake responded, his voice steady, "I've been working on myself." "Have you?" The question carried a weight. "Or are you still chasing dreams made of sand?" Jake inhaled, piercing through the surface layer of defensiveness. "No, I'm here to find out what really matters to me, to define success in my own terms." "I need your input, Dad." The surprise flickered in his father's eyes, followed closely by skepticism. "You think this is an easy conversation?" "I don't expect it to be," Jake answered, his resolve strengthening. "But I'm willing to listen, willing to face what we've both avoided." The walls that had stood between them were starting to tremble. With every word exchanged, Jake sensed the foundation cracks. They were both being forced to confront their past. His father shifted uneasily, and tension danced between them. "You sound earnest, but this is bigger than just you. Do you realize how many sacrifices I made for you?" "I do, and I honor them," Jake replied, his voice softening. "But I've realized that carrying those expectations has stunted me. I need to carve my own future, while still being a part of yours. Can we find a way to do that together?" The question hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Jake's heart raced as he awaited his father's response. This was the moment, a potential collision point or a pivot toward reconciliation. As silence enveloped them, Jake's mind began to whirl with what lay ahead: the confrontation of entrenched beliefs, the possibility of breaking free. Would his father engage, or would old wounds cast deep shadows over this fragile moment of hope? The atmosphere crackled with the weight of their decisions, and Jake's breath caught at the precipice of transformation. A decision loomed on the horizon, one that could redefine both of their lives, one that could either sink into the chasm of their past or rise to new heights. Was he prepared for the emotional labor that awaited, and more importantly, would his father reciprocate this leap of faith? The silence loomed like a heavy cloud, smothering the warmth of the cafe atmosphere. Jake's heart thudded in his chest, the space between him and his father suddenly filled with unspoken fears and expectations. His father's stern expression, etched with years of unyielding ideals, seemed to deepen, and Jake wondered if he had made a grave mistake in his quest for understanding. "What do you mean, your own future?" his father finally asked, the skepticism returning to his voice, sharper than before. Jake's resolve flared in response. He had anticipated the pushback, and he was ready. "I mean that I want to pursue what feels right for me, and that might not be aligned with what you visioned." I've defined success through your lens for too long. I want to find mine. The tension registered in the set of his father's jaw. The man was a fortress, formidable against the onslaught of soft words. So, you're just going to throw everything away? The family name, the years of hard work I invested into your future. Each accusation landed on Jake, stinging at first but then igniting a fire within him. He had allowed guilt to dictate his actions for years, it was no longer an option. It's not about throwing anything away, Dad. What I need is to build on the foundation you laid, but in a way that reflects who I am. You set me up to succeed, but now I need to determine what success means to me. The conversation shifted like the gears of a clock, ticking down the seconds and pushing them toward a crucial moment. Jake watched as his father's expression flickered, the rigid lines of authority softening imperceptibly. But the battle was far from over, they were still navigating treacherous waters. I sacrificed everything for you, his father stated, anger mingled with sorrow. Didn't that mean anything? I wanted you to have more, to achieve what I never could. Jake felt the pang of his father's regret but met it with quiet conviction. Of course it did. But that sacrifice cannot be the anchor that weighs me down. I have to release both you and myself from this cycle, or we'll stay trapped in a narrative that doesn't serve us. The weight of Jake's words hung thick in the air, two men grappling with the past while desperately reaching for an uncertain future. What had begun as a strategic meeting was morphing into a raw exploration of their conflicting identities. Each response pushed them either toward connection or deeper into estrangement. So what is it? What do you want? His father's voice grew softer, wearier, as if he was on the brink of exhaustion from carrying this burden alone. Jake took a breath, forcing himself to articulate the truth that had eluded him for so long. I want to create a life that embraces risk, that allows for failures, and celebrates successes on terms I choose, not just yours. It's about redefining legacy. I want to build something meaningful, not merely something successful in others' eyes. A pause ensued, the silence filled by the distant clatter of dishes and muted conversations surrounding them. They were in a bubble, two men together yet so profoundly apart. Jake's thoughts raced with what could come next. Would this be the turning point or another lost opportunity? For the first time, he noticed the flicker of emotion breaking through the stoic armor of his father's demeanor. Uncertainty clashed with understanding, and Jake knew this moment was pivotal. Yet, even this glimpse of potential light felt fragile, as if it could shatter with a single harsh comment. Jake, his father began hesitantly, are you sure you're ready for that? To embrace what could be, unexpected. The question lingered. Would Jake be capable of withstanding the turbulence ahead, or would uncertainty erode the resolve he'd built? The answer would shape not just the future of their relationship, but his own identity as well. As they locked eyes, Jake realized that the leap toward transformation demanded both risk and vulnerability. The question charged the air between them, what would he sacrifice to hold on to his truth? The stakes grew higher, and with each heartbeat, Jake felt the growing realization that genuine change was a battle he must fight, one he could not face alone. The thought echoed in his mind, leaving him suspended in a moment ripe with potential yet clouded with fear. Was he prepared to navigate the storm that would finally challenge their long-held beliefs? The meeting loomed over Jake as he sat in the cafe, the walls muffling the sounds of life outside. Today was not simply a reunion, it was a reckoning. Even as he absorbed the heart of his father's concerns, Jake felt the weight of his own aspirations solidify within him. Yes, I'm ready, he declared, his voice steady, reflecting a determination that had become part of him through these last weeks of introspection. His father leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowed and brows furrowed. Ready for what, exactly? To embrace the unexpected, Jake replied, exuding confidence molded from earlier uncertainties. To let go of predefined notions of success. I want to find my own path now, not just the one laid out before me. The acknowledgement fluttered in the air, both freeing and terrifying. With each word, Jake could feel a peculiar lightness in his chest, as if the chains binding him to past expectations were slowly unraveling. His father's gaze shifted as if weighing the sincerity of Jake's evolution. Do you really think you can redefine legacy? His father questioned, the skepticism a familiar punch in their historical boxing match of ideas. A legacy isn't built on whims, it's grounded in hard work. I know that. Jake responded, leaning closer, intensity radiating from him. But hard work can also be infused with passion and authenticity, can't it? It's not just about the numbers or titles anymore. It's about making something real, meaningful. The realization flowed between them, crafting a fragile thread of hope. Jake could see the shift in his father, the hard edges softening slowly as the dialogue pierced through years of resentment. But shadows of their past still loomed, the walls needing careful dismantlement. Then show me, his father challenged, the fire of ambition resurrecting in his eyes. What does this legacy of yours look like? How will you make it count? Jake paused, allowing a reflective silence to settle between them. He drew from the conversations he had with Leah, Jenna, and even Ethan the threads that had begun weaving new fabric in his life. When I think about legacy now, I picture a life far richer than wealth. It is about relationships. Genuine connections and impact. I want to create mentorship programs for young entrepreneurs, nurture their voices, and teach them that it's fine to fail because that's where growth happens. As Jake spoke, an undercurrent of conviction surged through him. Every word was anchored in newfound purpose, releasing a pent-up yearning he hadn't been brave enough to articulate before. He saw glimpses of approval flicker in his father's eyes, a testament to shared aspirations he believed had been extinguished. Those are admirable goals. His father's response bore the weight of admiration wrapped in disbelief. But are you sure this isn't just a reaction to our conversation? You could still lose everything you built. Perhaps, Jake admitted, but I've already lost something far greater myself. I'm no longer willing to sacrifice personal authenticity for a legacy wrought with silence and resentment. It's my turn to forge a connection, to forge a legacy that means something not just to me, but to others. The words resonated in the cafe ambience, standing as a promise of transformation, one that his father had inadvertently shaped through the tough lessons learned. In that moment, Jake realized that he wasn't just confronting his father, he was breaking free from the expectations that had tethered him for far too long. Let's start by collaborating on this, his father finally suggested, a shift palpable in his demeanor. Managing a mentorship program for young talent, together. A chance to mend our bond while doing something that could change lives. Stunned by the offer, Jake felt the heavy fog lifting from their conversation. You'd do that? You'd really want to work on this with me? Perhaps it's time I came to see what truly matters, his father replied, a hint of vulnerability cracking through his stoic exterior. They sat quietly for a moment, the world outside the cafe blurring into the background. As Jake processed the prospect of this renewed partnership and the potential it held, a smile crept across his face. This moment was what he had fought for, the opportunity to reshape not only his legacy but also the connection he longed for with his father. All right, let's do it, Jake declared, satisfaction flooding through him. Let's redefine what legacy means, for both of us. In that instant, an unspoken agreement solidified between them, the willingness to face the past while building a future grounded in authenticity, empowerment, and love. As Jake stepped outside the cafe, the bustling sounds of the street seemed vibrant, filled with possibility. He had conquered a significant obstacle, he felt a transformation swimming through his veins, a simultaneous sense of security and excitement blossoming within him. Looking back one last time at the cafe, Jake understood that he was no longer just the son of a legacy, he was the architect of his narrative, renewed, revitalized and ready to embrace the vast horizons ahead. This was achievement, this was the dawning of a new era of connection, both familial and personal. With a deep breath, he smiled, ready to take his next step into a life imbued with purpose, compassion, and authentic success. The experience had revealed the transformative power of vulnerability, urging him toward deeper connections that could yield a lasting legacy, one that would resonate beyond his own life, and into the lives of those he was yet to inspire. Now it was time to share this journey with you. You need to subscribe now, this is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread this empowering message. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's metamorphosis. Your thoughts matter. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let them join in on the journey of transformation.